shocking Bible seminars presented by Pastor Carolus. Were you here? Were you blessed? And they were a blessing. And today, in many ways, is the highlight of both the seminars of the week, but it's the conclusion of the seminars. And we pray that you'll be blessed. Now, if you attended, you'd have seen that each day, each night, there was what we called a health nugget. A health nugget. The first night was presented and introduced by Bruce, Dr. Bruce, who's just arrived back from Tygerberg. Pray for him. He needs our prayers. He's writing huge exams soon, and I understand he's a little bit disillusioned. What you see in the reality in the hospitals, when you've got your third gunshot and you've just been in theatre the whole night, you get very tired and depressed and delusioned with humanity at times. And Carol spoke about salt and hydration. A little bit closer, thank you, Bron. And then we had Cindy talking about food and digestions and some do's and don'ts there, and wonderful instruction based on advice, sound counsel that we've been given. And the question that I'm going to be asking is why? Cedric spoke about the GRT tract, guts. Do you have the guts to be, what was it, for health? Do you have the guts for health? Thank you, Cedric, that was great. Priscilla, your talk on depression and the things that affect us. And then Emmanuel last night spoke about exercise. And okay, there we go. If you want longevity on this planet, the most powerful thing probably is exercise. But we all heard about New Start, and we know what New Start stands for: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust. But my question is, so what? Why health? Why? It sounds logical, but why? Why New Start? Why these health nuggets that we've been presenting? And particularly in the context of the wonderful messages we're having. And I'm just going to ask you to remember two words, love and choice. If that's all you remember, try to remember those two words, love and choice. And my presentation today is entitled Choices, Choices, Choices. But I'm going to give a little bit of a preamble, and so just bear with me. So, who is God? Who is God? If you can say you know God, how are you going to describe God to me? 1 John 4 verse 8 and 4 verse 16 says, "He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. And we have known and believed the love that God hath to us. God is love." These three words of 9 letters are the most powerful words you'll ever hear. God is love. And Bram remembered to remind me when we get to tend to just wave at me, because I can get carried away. So God is love. What do those words mean? If there's one thing, many people spend years and years going through life, going through religions, different religions, and I'm taking you right to the conclusion of the ultimate conclusion of God and who He is. God is love. God is love. What does it mean? These words are as eternally true as God is. Love defines God, and God defines love. Love describes God, and God describes love. And these words are the basis of the characteristics of God. So, the only way, because we can't understand the infinite, great, eternal, omniscient, all-present, all-powerful God. Does anybody understand Him? Can you lift your... So, the only way for us to try and understand God is to understand the concept and implications of love. And God is love. So, love. Can love be forced? Can you, to have love, can you hold a gun against somebody you love, your wife, your children's head, and say, "Love me or I'm going to kill you"? No, never. It's impossible. Love does not function like that. And by the way, one of the greatest topics we can study about, we've been told through inspiration, history is very important. Why? Because history repeats and humanity forgets. Physiology is very important, and the health nuggets have shown that that physiology is the basis of health, and we're encouraged to study and present physiology. This is spiritual physiology that we're going to be talking about today. There we go. Okay, lost the sound for a moment. Spiritual anatomy and physiology. Love. Love can only happen by freedom of choice. And what did I say I'm going to be talking about today? Choices, choices, choices. Love can never be forced or coerced, then it is not love. So God is love. Love is life. And I can prove that to you because love wants to grow and expand. And as it expands and grows, as I give love, love comes back to me. And it's a circle of life. And by the way, the implications are huge because you cut any of the giving or the getting. It's like cutting the throat, maybe of a lamb, maybe of a sheep, and love and life comes to an end. God is life. Therefore, love, which is God and life, can only happen by freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. That's the only way to have life. And God is life. God is love. So there's an absolute in God's universe. God's universe, for God to be love. There is nothing that God values in his universe more than freedom of choice. It's the only way to have love, the only way to have life, the only way for God of love to have existed. In fact, it's the only way for a God to exist, and that's why there is only one God. So there's only one way to love, and there is only one way to have life. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice then means that you need a free moral agent of choice. And we could spend quite a lot of time talking about this, but I do have to watch my time. So a freedom of choice, a free moral agent, a FMA, free moral agent of choice. What is a free moral agent of choice? It's an intelligent being with ability to reason, to think, and come to a conclusion to love or not to love. Moral, this concept of moral law. What do we mean by moral law? Anybody that has intelligence and ability to reason, and that's humanity, and we believe the angels are free moral agents of choice, as are all intelligent beings. This concept of morality means that God expects, there's a law, moral law, in the whole universe, and it would be applicable to the angels, it would be applicable to us in our situation, and you've got the ability to make freedom of choice. I'm Martin Hart, and lovely to see you guys. Sorry that Tandi's mom's passed. Strength and praise are with you. And so a free moral agent is what we are, and it has expectations that we can make choices, either for life and love or against life and love. And God gives you that freedom of choice. Everybody still with me? Free moral agents of choice. Okay. So in the great controversy, we're in a spiritual battle. We've heard about it this week by Pastor Carolus. It's a battle for what? The great controversy is ultimately the battle for your choice. And that's the battle that both God and Satan are trying to influence you for. So this particular lesson, that was just the preamble, this talk, this discussion is called Choices, Choices, Choices. And in the context of God creating a free moral agent of choice, man, and we could spend lots of time talking about that, and the angels, he gives us the freedom to love or not love. And love can only happen with freedom of choice. So here's a thought for thought. Your choices decide your habits. Your habits decide your lifestyle. Your lifestyle decides your character. What's the only thing you can take to heaven with you? Is your character. And your character decides your destiny. It basically decides who you are, and who you are decides your destiny. Your character is based on your destiny. And who do we want to be? What character do we want? Only you can choose it. Now, as we're going to see in this discussion, God is trying to influence us. And a dark side, a negative side is also trying to influence us, but we'll get there. Your choices decide your habits decide your lifestyle decides your character, and your character decides your destiny. So where does your destiny start? All the way back with your choices. Quite correct. And who makes the choice for you? Can the devil force you to make a choice? Why not? He would if he could. Why can't the devil? Because he's been given a limit. Can God force you into heaven? He wouldn't be love. He wouldn't be God. He wouldn't be life. There wouldn't be life. So God cannot force you. The devil cannot force you. Who's going to be deciding where you end up? Yes. Now, I want to caution you, as we go through this discussion, please don't for a moment think that we're saved by your choice. Your choice can never save you. Don't get confused with that. But your choice will influence you. And God and the devil are trying to influence you. So your destiny starts with the choices you make. So here's your life path. And as you go through, you've got choices. And your choices are either going to be positive or your choices are going to be negative. Your habits are going to be positive or negative. Your lifestyle is going to be positive or negative based on your choices, and your destiny is going to be positive. And it's all in the, where do we make our choices? Where does our destiny then lie? Where are we saved or lost then? It's the battle for your mind, your choice. And where do we need healing? Where's the problem? It's up here. Just if you don't believe me, just look around in this world. It's a battle for truth, for your choice. And so, new start, why? Why these health nuggets? Why does God want us to be healthy? Why? It's all about optimizing, to optimize. If you have optimal cells, you're going to have optimal tissue. And if you have optimal tissue, you're going to have optimal organs. And by the way, this is just the building up of the human anatomy and physiology. And if you have optimal organs, you're going to have an optimal brain, because the brain is one of the organs. But that's where our characters are based, our thoughts are based, our decisions are based. And if you have an optimal brain, you're going to have optimal choices. And if you have optimal choices, you should have optimal habits. And if you have optimal habits, you should have an optimal lifestyle. And if you have an optimal lifestyle, you should have an optimal character. And if you have an optimal character, you should have an optimal destiny. But as we see, your choice is not the beginning and the ending. But it's certainly going to help you a long way to getting to the correct destiny. So we're going to look at anatomy 101. We just touched on it in that slide. But we're going to look at the anatomy of a choice, the anatomy of a habit, the anatomy of a lifestyle, the anatomy of a character, and the anatomy of a destiny. Who's done anatomy formally at university? Grant, I know you probably have, and many have. The physiological anatomy that we're going to be looking at is the anatomy of a choice, habit, lifestyle, character, and destiny. So there's two driving forces in the universe that influence our choice, and there's actually many modulators, and we'll touch on them, that influence our choices. The two that we're going to look at that influence ultimate your destiny is good, and by the way, the word God comes from the word good, and evil, either good or evil, and the word devil comes from the word evil. They're contrasting. And that's the battle that we find ourselves in. It's an unseen battle, but Ephesians 6 tells us that we're in a spiritual battle where we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in high places. On earth, the two main forces that influence our choices are the need to avoid discomfort and pain, and the desire to gain happiness and pleasure. Pain or pleasure. That's what kind of moves humans, if you want to. The one thing that incorrectly moves us is money. We think money brings pleasure and avoids pain. But those are two big modulators, and we'll look at that word in a moment. So the anatomy of a choice. Now I want you to remember, besides love and choice, this little acronym, STR, stimulus, thought, response. And this is what a choice looks like. Every choice has a stimulus, thought, response relationship. The stimulus comes in, and it goes through those modulators, the pain-pleasure modulator, and out comes the response. Now, the response is your choice. So if you hear the word response, that's basically your choice. What's another word that inspiration tells us is your choice? Your will. So you won't see the word choice so much in inspiration, but you'll see this concept called the will, the power of the will, the power of your choice. Your choice is your will. So the response, the choice, or the will, all the same thing. And it's modulated by those two forces, the pain and pleasure principles. So here's a more detailed choice that comes through. The stimulus comes through. How does God or Satan influence us? Through our senses. Smell, touch, see, feel. Those is how God, and there is one that I haven't mentioned here. It's a spiritual one through the conscience, but there is warnings, and that's not the discussion today, the conscience. But all of those influences, and out comes a thought. There's nice smell in the kitchen, mom's baking bread, nice memories, and a positive thought. Okay, I need to move out. So there's the, and so those are modulators that come through the pain and pleasure principle, and through two areas. The cortex, which is the thinking area, particularly in the frontal lobe where you make your choices, and the limbic area, which is based on feeling. And one of the definitions of a character is, moral character is made up by thoughts and feelings combined make up your moral character. And what character do we want? We want the character of Christ. We want to feel like Christ felt. We want to think like Christ thinks. When you see somebody lying in the street, how do you feel about that person, that street person? Do you feel like Christ does? Do you think like Christ does? But how do you know if a thought is positive or negative? So there's your STR. It's either your response is eventually going to be positive or negative. And there's three that are potentially experiencing reactions in this thought response. How are you going to know if it's a good choice, a good response? God, yourself, and others. God, yourself, and others. And all three must be okay. It must be okay with God, your choice. It must be okay with you and me. We've got to be careful of filtering it through others and myself, because we get it wrong. The ultimate final decision is with God and others. So if this is your life path, 3 okays mean that if your choice is positive, it's okay with God, yourself, and others, and if it's a negative choice, it's not okay. Even if there's one not okay, you've got to go and check, is that all right? Are people complaining? But ultimately, God is where we filter it, and that's why the Bible, God's word, becomes so critical, because people get it wrong. Okay, your habits are going to be okay or not, and your lifestyle is going to be okay or not, filtered through those three things, and ultimately your destiny is going to be okay or not, positive or negative, because you filtered it through those three pathways. So the anatomy of a habit, by definition, and the same choice repeated 23 times becomes a habit, roughly. There's no absolute, but if you look at the neural pathways, if you've made a choice roughly 23 times, for instance, somebody smoked, you made a choice to smoke, and by the time you're an adult smoking so much, you made a choice so many times that it's a thick neural pathway. And the new choice would be to choose not to smoke. After 23 times of that choice, you're starting to make a neural pathway, and you want to grow that neural pathway thicker than the one and let that one shrink, so that it will become a habit. What's the definition of a habit? Exercise 23 times. It comes through the stimulus, your senses, it goes through the two forces. There must be something about smoking, otherwise people wouldn't smoke, but it's the wrong plain pleasure. And this is the problem with human beings. We've confused pain with pleasure. We've got it wrong. That's why the ultimate filter is always God. And out comes the response. 23 times, and you've got a habit. 23 choices, exercise forms a habit. And eventually, a habit is an automated choice. You're just doing it automatically. Okay, so the anatomy of a lifestyle, and that's very simple. The many habits put together that you've formed over your lifetime, or forming, becomes your lifestyle. And the anatomy of a character, the person formed by your lifestyle, who you really are. what you are thinking and feeling about all situations. That is your character. That is who you are. And that's the only thing you can take with you to heaven. So we want positive characters. So to optimize your positive character, it starts on a molecular, cellular level to get your brain clear as possible to make clear thoughts. How easy do you think it is for a drunk lying in the ditch to make positive choices? He's talking to you, but he maybe doesn't even know where he is, you know. And by the way, everybody's looking for peace, even that peace. That person's looking for peace. It's very short. It's a broken system, but he's looking for peace, but in the wrong place. And Christ says, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives it, but true peace. True peace only comes through Christ. So the anatomy of your destiny then is basically where you end up based on your choices that lead to your character, and it's your character that's going to decide your destiny. So it all starts with your choices. Everybody with me? Okay. This is the complete view. The complete view is a stimulus that comes in through your senses, the three senses, the STR, stimulus, thought, response, gets filtered, comes through the touch, feeling, hear, seeing, and taste. We didn't talk about the conscience, but that's another modality that God speaks to us through our conscience. It forms a thought in our minds. That thought is moving us in a direction, and out comes then it gets filtered through the pain, pleasure, through the principal cortex, or the feeling limbic area in the brain. The limbic area is in the middle. It's quite a specialized area. Bruce would be able to tell us much more about that. His physiology is up to scratch. And then the response comes out, forms a habit, a choice exercise 23 times forms a habit. The habit, all the habits together form your lifestyle forms your character, and your character forms your destiny, and as we've seen, it starts with your choices. So how to change your destiny, or anything else in your choice-making, in your process of life and your choices. So if you want to change your destiny, you need to change your character. If you want to change your character, you need to change your lifestyle. If you want to change your lifestyle, you need to change your habits. If you want to change your habits, you need to change your choices. Now, thank you. Your choices. So if you want to change your choices, you need to change your stimulus thought response. And by the way, God is the only one that can do all of that. Never forget that. But one of the choices that you need to make is what we call surrender in the spiritual context. Surrendering your choice. Being willing to be made willing. And that's where God can start. But you can't change your stimulus thought response. The problem is you can't. You can only limit the exposure to the senses. So there's modulators. I'm quickly going to go through this. It's the same. Everything up to the response, everything before there is modulators. And that's where God functions. The Holy Spirit functions. The devil functions. He's trying to entice us. He's trying to influence us. Is it 10 to already? Okay, they're saying okay, so the modulators is, and there's much to be said about that. We need to limit our exposure to things that we know are harmful, the senses, etc., and expose ourselves to the positive. But you can't control the stimulus thought response. The response is where we function as free moral agents of choice. This is anthropology, the three big things in any theology, systematic theology. Who knows what they are? If you want to get division amongst Adventists, you start talking about these things. Hamatology, the study of sin. Christology, the nature of Christ. And there's no unity there per se, but the Bible brings us into unity. And then anthropology, the nature of man. How are we? Are we born sinful? Are we born sinning? Are we helpless? There's much to be said there, but that's not the purpose of this talk. But yeah, the nature of man, we've got the higher powers, the intellect, the conscience, the reason, and that's where God's speaking to us. And that needs to be in control of the will, the choice needs to be in control of the higher powers. And then we've got the lower powers, they're not sinful. But how we use them and abuse them becomes sinful. The appetites, the passions, the desires. And you just have to look around you in the world to find out which power is in control. Is it the lower passions or the higher powers that are in control? And you'll find that it's the lower powers that are in control. Choices, choices, choices. The will, the choice. And I just got this one quote. The will is the governing power in the nature of man. What is the governing power? We don't know the power of the will, the choice, the response. It's bringing all the other faculties under its sway. The will is not the taste or inclination, but it is the deciding power which works in the children of men unto obedience to God or unto disobedience, the will. I'm going to leave you now with three choices in this battle for your choice that we find ourselves in, the great controversy. The first one is realize that only you can choose for yourself. You ultimately choose your destiny. You'll never get there without Jesus. But you have to give him that choice. It's like a check. You can have the check, but if you don't sign it and give permission, it's useless. Or a legal document. And Jesus needs that. The devil also needs it. Okay, so choose God, choose love, and choose life. Are you going to make that choice with me today? Choose to limit your senses only to good modulators. The senses, and in this sinful world it becomes difficult. It's all around us. But that's why we need to be fully surrendered to God. For our visitors, for those that haven't yet, the book, The Great Controversy, was there. Plan to read that book. That book goes into much more depth than what we'll ever see in The Great Controversy, The Battle for Your Choice. And I invite you to read and study, especially the powerful chapters, chapter 29 to 32, which describe some of these aspects and the times we're living in. But there's much to be said, but that in essence is the choice. Why do we want to have you healthy? To optimize. It might not be the perfect, it might not be the best, but in your situation, it will be the optimal choice, habit, lifestyle, character, destiny that you can make.